name is Christina Sparks, and I do work in the district in prevention programs. Prevention programs encompasses a few different things due to funding. And so we have our tobacco use prevention, which also addresses marijuana, alcohol, and other substances. And then my role in the district and in the program is to focus on bullying prevention throughout the district. So today we're going to talk about how families can help with bullying that might be happening either to your student, maybe your child is doing the bullying, or maybe your child just has come home with concerns about bullying that's been happening at their school. And so we'll talk a little bit about all of those things. We'll start out talking about what bullying is and what it is not, because it's important to understand also that not every form of aggression or violence is bullying. There are and other kinds of conflicts and things like that that are not necessarily bullying. We'll talk about some resources that are available to you in the district, and some ways that you can, again, help your child if they are being bullied, are doing the bullying, or see bullying happening. I'm going to start out with this video here. So that is one example of bullying, and in most cases, things that happen and go on every day at schools, it's not going to be that extreme and that right out there. But the reason I show this is to show some different roles that are in place when bullying happens in any kind of bullying situation. It could be something right out there like that on the playground. It could be more of the exclusion and subtle bullying. But in bullying situations, you have the person who's being bullied, the person who's doing the bullying, those who are supporting that bullying and kind of helping to keep it go on, and then those other roles, those bystanders who see it. They might not be actively involved, but they may like it and be entertained by it. They may not like it, but not know what to do or how to stop it. And then hopefully we have that other role where we saw the young man who stood up for the student being bullied, and then others that joined them. Doesn't always happen, but those are some different roles that can take place in bullying situations. Are there any thoughts or questions about what you just saw? Okay, sometimes we use that same video with students to kind of go into those different roles and help them to explore where they might be in that type of a situation and what they might do. So I'm not going to read all of this, but I just want to start out by saying again that there are those different roles. You have that student who is being bullied, and we kind of know some obvious reasons why it matters, why we do anything about bullying, because of these effects on students who are bullied. A lot of it being anxiety and depression, and things that show long-term that there's a greater risk of depression and some relationship with suicidal behaviors and thoughts of suicide. We can't necessarily say that being bullied will automatically cause someone to have suicidal thoughts or behaviors. It does put them at greater risks if there are other things going on, but research has not shown that there is that exact cause factor there. And we have the effects on students who bully. So of course we're worried and concerned about those students who get bullied, definitely, but we should also be worried and concerned and want to help the students who are doing the bullying, because those kids are going to grow up into adults in our society, and we want them to be positive, contributing members of society. And research shows that students who bully are at a greater risk for being incarcerated later on in life. And so that's why it matters, and that's why we want to be able to provide these resources to help those who are doing the bullying as well. So what about the bystander? In bullying situations, 85% of bullying situations, there are bystanders present. People who are there, they're not being bullied, they're not doing the bullying, but they are there and they see it happening. And I don't know if you can think back to a time when you were younger in school maybe and bullying was happening and how that might have affected you. I know that when I was younger and in school, I went to a school that was primarily made up of Latino students and Caucasian students. There were 2 black students in my class. One was a girl, one was a boy, and I was friends with the girl. She was kind of in our group, and she constantly belittled and bullied and was just outright mean to the boy in our class that was black. And I didn't really understand it. I was kind of confused by it, like why would she do that at all? And then also she's black, so, you know, and I don't know, there's probably all kinds of dynamics going on for her about why she would do that and say these racist things to him. But I didn't like it, and I knew it wasn't okay, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I still remember that to this day, that seeing that look on his face when she would say these things to him and just not really knowing what to do. And he was at our school for about 2 years, and I never did anything. And I still remember that and feeling like, wow, I really should have done something. So there's definitely effects on not only those who get bullied or those who do the bullying, but those who see it, especially if it's on an ongoing, continual basis, and if it's part of that culture too. So some of the effects on bystanders are that they might be kind of desensitized to acts of aggression that go on. They might have feelings of guilt or being uncomfortable or feeling like they don't really have a whole lot of power or control over situations. And we definitely want to empower our students to feel like they can make some positive change if they feel safe and comfortable to do so. So we're going to take just a second. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds or so to kind of recall an instance of bullying. It could be from your childhood. It could be maybe your child came to you and told you about bullying that's happening to them or to somebody else, or maybe something you've seen recently. So just kind of think of something in your head that you consider bullying and kind of keep that in your head for a minute. Okay, so we're just going to store that in our heads for a minute as we go through talking about what bullying is and is not. Okay, so this is our definition that as a district San Juan has kind of adopted as a guide to what bullying is. There's no perfect definition. We're always going to have some things that maybe we feel don't fit exactly, but this definition comes specifically from the Olveus Bullying Prevention Program, which is an international program that's evidence-based. It has a lot of research backing it being effective in reducing bullying, both in other countries and in the United States. And so we, as a district, use this definition as a guide when we're talking about bullying situations. So this definition says that bullying is when someone repeatedly and on purpose says or does mean or hurtful things to another person who has a hard time defending himself or herself. So are there any questions about this definition, or are there any pieces of it that maybe you don't agree with or you question somewhat? A lot of times people say, well, why does it have to be repeated? I mean, what if someone does something one time that's not nice? And the reason for that is not that it's okay even one time for someone to experience hurtful or harmful acts, but we're really looking at things that are a pattern of behavior, things that are continual and ongoing that make someone feel like they don't even want to be at school, that affects their learning, and that they don't fit in or belong anywhere, because those are the things that affect our students long term. Not to say that, you know, there can't be one really aggressive act that affects somebody, and so we do take those things into consideration as well, but when we're really talking about bullying, it is those repeated patterns of behavior. A lot of times people say, well, why does it have to be that they have a hard time defending himself or herself? Well, again, with bullying, what we're looking at is that ongoing pervasive behavior that makes people feel like they have no control over anything, they feel powerless, and that someone else is using power and influence in a harmful or hurtful way. So we're going to go into that a little bit more. And when you break down that definition, it's kind of broken down into these 4 components, having that specific type of aggressive act, and that could be physical, it could be verbal, it could also be just psychological or kind of the social relationship kind of things, like excluding or trying to damage friendships. The behavior is intentional, so this person is trying to purposely be hurtful and harmful. Sometimes people do things and they're not meaning to be hurtful or hurt feelings, And so generally what would happen is once they realize that they did something harmful, they're going to stop and quit, and it's not going to keep going. But if they keep doing it, most likely going to be intentional, which is why when we work with schools, it's really important, and even for parents too, to document these things so that you have record. If they're something that someone keeps doing, it is intentional because they know and they've been talked to about it. Sometimes we do things and, you know, we're not, it's an accident. We think we're playing around, or, you know, I'm not meaning to hurt your feelings. And especially if it's kind of a friendship relationship and you tell them to stop, they're going to stop. And then, so most likely if it stops, it's not bullying. And we'll talk a little more about teasing and conflict as well. Carried out repeatedly and over time, so we talked about those patterns of behavior. And then an imbalance of power. Again, using your influence in a way that is harmful to somebody else. So power could be a lot of different things, and it's going to be different in different schools and different environments. So it could be that someone here at Sylvan, maybe if you're on the, do you go here to Sylvan? Okay, what's a sport here that's really popular that for people to, soccer? Okay, so maybe it's like if you play soccer and you're good at soccer out on the field, then you are seen as really cool and having a lot of power and influence socially. But maybe at a different school, it might be, if you're in student government, that's awesome, and that might be the group that really has a lot of influence and social power at that school. So, and then we have things like size, if somebody's taller, bigger, stronger. If they're, you know, an 8th grader might have more power and influence than a 6th grader at a school. Kids who have the cool clothes or the cool shoes might be seen to have more power influence than other students. So it's really going to be different in different communities and in different schools as to what that power is. But usually the thing is that it's not necessarily that they do have more power, it's just other kids see them, their perception is that those groups have more power and influence. Okay, so some examples of bullying. So bullying is either direct or indirect. So a direct act is when it's face-to-face, right there, you know who's doing it, they're doing it to you, right in front of you, whether that's physical or verbal. They're teasing, taunting, and it might not be that they are physically hurting, touching you, harming you, but it could just be that threat of harm or intimidation where you think someone will act on what they're saying. If they're like, I'm gonna, you know, knock over all your belongings, all your books off your desk if you don't move. And maybe they don't actually do it, and they don't actually touch you or do anything to you or your property, but just that threat and that intimidation, and when you really feel like they will do it. So that's direct act. And then we have indirect acts, and that's when it's kind of behind your back, sneaky. You may not know who exactly is doing it, who's talking about you, who's excluding you. Rumors, gossip, cyberbullying, and we'll talk a little bit more about cyberbullying in a minute. But a lot of times we associate this kind of bullying with girls, that relational aggression, again, trying to purposely damage friendships and relationships to gain power. And research does show that girls engage in that type of bullying more, but right, exactly, you got it. Boys do it too, and we forget that, and we think like, oh, boys don't have to worry about that. Boys definitely do that, and it matters to them, and it hurts them, so we really need to be sure that we don't minimize that in our boys, because relationships are important to them as well. It might look different, or be different, or be communicated differently, but they definitely matter. So cyberbullying. So basically cyberbullying is bullying but using technology to bully, like our phones, which are little mini computers, right? Our laptops, our computers, going online in chat rooms, on social media pages such as Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat. Am I forgetting any? I don't know if you know any of the social media sites that are popular. You want to add anything? No? Okay, that's good. Good. Oh, Facebook, definitely. Thank you. Vine, so that's, you know, not only words, but pictures and videos. that are out there, 6-second videos even, you know. So using those things to bully, to embarrass, humiliate, threaten. And I could do a whole other workshop on cyberbullying, and I literally can if it is wanted. However, what it really comes down to is, you know, being kind and teaching our kids in our community to be kind. And if we're doing that, we're going to reduce bullying and cyberbullying. So I know a lot of sites do have kind of a way to report if you think it's inappropriate. I just know that Facebook actively will do something about it, and I'm not sure for sure about the other sites. Yes. I mean, if they kind of have to do their own, like, sort of mini investigation, I'm guessing, to determine if it's something that's not inappropriate, but a bunch of people report it and they find that it's okay, then they would leave it up. But if it's found to be bullying, or other inappropriate, burn pages, so people create pages that are like, oh, the top 10 ugly girls at this school or something like that. So things like that are just not very nice. You know, you definitely want people to report those, and they'll look into that. Okay, so we talked about what bullying is, had a definition, some examples. We're going to talk a little bit about what bullying is not. So teasing, that's a big one. You know, we had a discussion earlier today about kind of the cultural piece of teasing. In some cultures, it's more accepted to kind of tease and tease in certain ways, like the your mama jokes and things like that, where, you know, in some cultures that might be funny and cool, okay, certain groups can kind of tease that way, but in other cultures, that would not be okay. So teasing's a difficult thing, because a lot of times, you know, the definition of teasing is to make fun of or attempt to provoke in a playful way. So when you're looking at that definition of bullying, the intent with teasing is not to be hurtful, but to be playful and to kind of joke around and maybe be a part of a relationship. But sometimes it crosses the line. And I think, you know, because that intent to be hurtful is not there, we have to kind of look at the situation and decide, you know, is this something that I'm okay with? If someone's teasing me, is this something that I'm okay with? And then be okay with speaking up if you don't like it, letting that person know, okay, like, you've crossed the line, or I'm not okay with you teasing me about this subject. And if they stop, then most likely, you know, it's not bullying, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I was just messing around, wasn't trying to be mean or hurtful, and they stop, then, you know, okay, those mistakes are gonna happen. Wasn't very nice, it still hurt your feelings, yes, but that's not bullying. But if it keeps on going and you ask them to stop, and maybe they stop today, and okay, but then tomorrow they do it again and again, well, that could be bullying, especially if it keeps going and it's ongoing. And we encourage our students, especially if they're not sure, to go to an adult at home or at school, let them know what's going on, and that adult can help them decide if, you know, something else needs to happen, if that is bullying or not. Or, you know, maybe they move on to something else. When someone's trying to purposely, they know there's something that bothers you, and they purposely do it intentionally to hurt you, is when it's bullying. If you can ask them to stop and they stop, whether it's your friend or not, it might be your friend, like your best friend teases you about something, they think it's funny, and then they don't realize, oh, you're not okay with that. And, you know, and then they stop, then okay, we move on from there. But so it's kind of hard, and definitely teasing can cross the line into bullying, but that's just where we need to know what our limits are and be okay communicating that with other people. And really what we want to do is help our students know that it's okay to stand up for themselves. It's okay to be assertive, to hold yourself with confidence, have eye contact, use a clear words to express what, you know, I don't like that, please don't say that, or, you know, that's, if it's your friend, you might be more likely to say, like, that's hurting my feelings, letting them know how you feel. But it's not okay to be aggressive, to be hurtful back. You don't want to physically harm somebody or verbally using your words to put people down and belittle them, because then you're just carrying on that behavior that we don't want to happen and that you don't want happening to you. So we really try to teach our students that distinction, and being assertive is okay, we just don't want to be aggressive. Okay, and then we have conflict. So conflict is going to happen every day to everybody. You know, maybe not every single day, but pretty frequently, you know, someone's not going to agree with what you say or how you want to approach something or what you want to do. And when we are kind of on that equal power with someone, we can come to an agreement or a compromise, or just agree to disagree. But in bullying, somebody's using that power and influence that we talked about to try to get their way and get it to be the way they want it to be, using that power in a hurtful way. So with conflict, we oftentimes bring students together who are having conflict to kind of work it out. And if it's truly conflict and not bullying, that's a great way to approach something. We even have our peer conflict mediators who help students work out problems. But if we have a bullying situation, again, true bullying situations have that imbalance of power where somebody has more influence over another person in some way. If you have that student there who has this power and then another student who feels like they have no power or influence, bringing those two parties together can really just re-traumatize that student who was bullied, because they might look like they're agreeing to some kind of compromise or resolution of the situation, but a lot of times they might just be scared of what's going to happen to them, that what are the consequences? Are they going to get bullied again? Are people going to make fun of them and tease them? Are they just going to say things are okay and they're really not? So really knowing, that's why we have that definition that helps guide our district and our administrators to know if these situations are bullying or not, because that's going to be, you're going to proceed differently in different situations. Okay, is there any questions about that definition or what bullying is not?
About like when someone is bullying like in a hurtful way, what do you mean? Like, can you give us like an example when someone wants to hurt somebody, either physically or verbally?
So an example of bullying? Well, I would say what we see a lot of is more that relational aggression, the social bullying, where we're trying to damage relationships, especially in, you know, 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th, middle school, those grades. So one example might be, and it sounds so simple and you think like, oh, that doesn't really happen, but it does, is leaving people out at lunchtime where you have this one student who's just always sitting by themselves and people are making fun of them for whatever. It could be one little small difference that they pick out about this person, and they, for some reason, have become this target of people excluding them, leaving them out, teasing, making fun of them. Maybe they get some kind of a name put on them that people think it's funny, and then it's kind of a really mean nickname type of thing. So there, they are intentionally doing those things to be harmful to that person, to be hurtful, to hurt their feelings, to leave them out, to in some way damage a relationship, so that maybe they, you know, it could be somebody trying to, maybe they were friends with somebody and they didn't want them to be friends with that person, or there's a whole bunch of reasons why it could get started. But really that, again, that intent is to purposely be harmful. Versus, say, again, someone thinks it's funny to, maybe somebody wore a really brightly colored sweater one day and someone thought like, oh, that's funny, I'm gonna make a funny joke about that and everybody's gonna laugh. So that would be intentionally harmful, but if someone thought like, oh, you know, maybe it's their friend or someone they kind of know and they made a joke about the sweater because they just thought it would be funny and that person would think it was funny too, and they wanted to kind of just have a funny conversation, but then it's hurtful to that person, even though the other person wasn't intending to be harmful, but it still hurt that person's feelings, and that's not okay. I'm not saying we just don't address it, but it's not necessarily bullying. Especially if you can tell that person like that's not cool. Someone's like, that's not cool, don't make fun of her sweater, and they stop and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, and they don't do it again. But if they keep doing it or doing it in some other kind of a way, then it could be bullying. Okay, so we talked about that power being really a key component there. somebody having power or perceived power and influence over other people. And that's kind of that big difference in there between things like conflict and bullying. So we're going to come back to, remember I asked you guys to think about a bullying situation that either you've seen, experienced, or heard about. And now that we've gone through this definition and examples, is that instance of bullying that you were thinking of, do you still feel like that is bullying? Or could it be something else? And it may be, because remember we're talking about things that are repeated over time, that pattern of behavior, that power imbalance, intentionally hurtful behavior. Okay, so just to kind of, these are things that we think about when a lot of times things can get categorized as bullying that really aren't, and some things are way more than bullying. I mean, some things are just outright assault and against the law. I mean, things like teen dating violence, gang violence, those things are beyond bullying and are addressed in a completely different way. So that's why we're really looking at, what is bullying and those patterns of behavior versus violent and aggressive acts that may not be bullying. Okay, so just briefly, some recent laws that affect schools. Seth's law talks about schools having a process for receiving and investigating complaints. So all schools need to have some kind of a process and a timeline when they receive reports of bullying. And the main component here to this law is that school staff are required to intervene when they see bullying happening or hear about bullying or getting a report of bullying. So school staff are required to intervene. Sometimes it's, our teachers are super busy. They have a lot to do and they have a couple minutes between classes. They just want to go, go to the bathroom maybe once during the day and grab some coffee maybe. And so they've got a lot to do and a little bit of time to do it. But if they're in those 2, 3, 4 minutes between classes, if they see bullying happening or suspect that it's happening, they are required to intervene as long as it's safe. We're not asking anybody to put themselves in harm's way, to safely intervene and to address it. And there's a certain procedure that we use to train staff in the district when they see bullying, what they can do, and we'll go into that a little bit later. And then we also have our school safety plans that are required to address bullying prevention and intervention. Schools are, it's up to schools how they want to do that, if they have certain programs, if they have certain resources that they use to do that, but all schools must address it in their safety plans. And then the most recent law that comes into play in January is that schools can refer students to support and counseling if they were bullied, if they did the bullying, and even if they were just affected by bullying. Maybe they weren't directly involved, but they saw it and were really affected by that. So those are some of the most recent laws, as well as, I didn't touch on this one, cyberbullying, because it's hard a lot of times for parents to know what schools can do when cyberbullying happens, and especially if it doesn't happen during the school day. Schools do now have the authority to investigate and discipline if they feel necessary cyberbullying instances that happen outside of school if it's shown to affect the school environment, and if kids are not wanting to come to school, if their grades are being affected by it, they don't want to go to school events because of cyberbullying that's happening. A lot of times, it might happen at 3 o'clock in the morning, but everyone's going to hear about it the next day who's on social media. So if it's affecting that school environment, schools are able to investigate, look into it, and discipline for it if they feel that, again, it's affecting the school environment.
Mm-hmm. So, do the teachers have any training, like to identify bullying? That's a good question.
It's a great question. So that actually leads us to my very next slide about what we've been doing in the district and some resources that are available to you. So last year we developed online modules through Schoology. It's an online site where you can post trainings, And so we developed that for all our school administrators, for them to take the training and then go back and provide training to their staff. So by the end of last school year, all our sites had been trained on what bullying is and is not, all similar to what you're getting, because all of this information, we want everyone to be on the same page. So these definitions, examples, things like that, they're getting all the same information. And then how to intervene when they see bullying happening. And then administrators also got some training on some best practices in interviewing and investigation as well. So yes, we are providing training. And I'm actually going to be updating it. That's another project I'm working on this year, is updating that, because things are always changing and moving and being improved upon, and we want to stay current. So in addition to that, we have our bullying prevention collaborative that meets every other month, and our first meeting for this school year is this Friday at the district office at 1 o'clock, and everybody's invited to attend if you're able to. And that's open to all district staff, parents. It's a lot of administrators and teachers and counselors who come kind of representing their school site or a specific department, because we want to bring all our resources together to see how we can best support all of our schools. But we definitely want parents involved as much as possible too, because we want all different perspectives. Last year we were able to have a few meetings at a school site, and so we had students come and give us some input as well. Every October is National Bullying Prevention Awareness Month, and so we provide folders of resources to all of our school sites, and there are things that, any updates on laws, any events or campaigns going on, resources that can be used in the classroom, and just other kind of updates around bullying prevention. And then you can always go to our website as well that has all of our resources listed there. One big thing, so this is kind of funny, because one big thing we did a couple years ago is we created a safety button on the website to make reporting easier. And so along with that, we put banners out with different ways you can report. We have these made in smaller sizes that can be posted in all our classrooms, so that people in the community, students who feel they would rather report in a confidential way, parents, can use these different ways of reporting. However, with some updates to our website, you might all know that we changed over to a whole new website. Some things didn't quite transfer over the way we would have liked, so I'm hoping by the time we come back after Thanksgiving, it'll all be set, because there's been about 20 emails going back and forth today to get this safety button back. And so I'm going to show you on our website here. Might take a second. Okay, so this is our district website, and if you come, it's not showing the whole thing, but here under parents, you can click here, click to bullying prevention, and that will take you to our bullying prevention page with a ton of resources for parents, students, staff, and yes, we have a lending library that has books that you can check out, and so there's contact information there. You just let us know, and you can stop by the district office, or we'll find a way to get it to you, get it to your school, and you can borrow that. There's storybooks, there's resource books, there's books, on how parents can help, those kinds of things. Okay, so on our public website, this is our main page for the district-wide public website. Down here is the safety button. Now, ideally, and what will happen in the next week or so, is you can click on the safety button and there'll be a drop down that says report bullying and other safety issues. So it's kind of, it's not quite set up yet. Well, there was a little bit of confusion today, so we're getting it worked out. It'll either say tell someone or report a safety issue, but either way, you go to it. It has all the different ways you can report, which were on that sign as well. So there's a texting line, there's a phone number, there's an online report form that you can go to, this tell someone form. But I do want to emphasize that we always ask our parents and anybody who wants to report bullying to at least start at your school and talk to someone at your school, whether that's a teacher, a principal, a counselor. really starting there because they're going to have the most information about your school, your student, other students who might be involved. So that's a really good starting point. However, that being said, I know sometimes I'm a parent myself. I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. Sometimes we feel like we've done everything that we can as parents to work with the school, and for whatever reason, we're not getting our needs met. So if you feel like you need to work outside the school after you've tried working with the school, then we have wonderful people like Benita and Kate who can help you navigate that, but it's always going to come back to the school, to working with the school on those things. So Mix It Up, it comes from the Teaching Tolerance organization, and you can go to, I think it's tolerance.org, and they have a lot of great activities, but one of the best ones that I love the most is Mix It Up, and that's Mix It Up at Lunch Day. And it's an official day in November, but you can do it anytime. And what you do is you randomly assign students to a table at lunchtime, so they do have to be in the cafeteria. It doesn't work as well if they're just going outside eating lunch. And you can randomly assign a bunch of different ways. You can do by kids who all have birthdays in October, or giving them cards with little different animals on it if they're younger, or something different if they're older. But basically, students are randomly assigned to tables as they come in, and on the tables are table tents of questions, kind of just icebreaker questions, getting to know you. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite TV show? Who's your favorite teacher? Or what's a good experience you had the first day of school? Just different things to kind of get to know each other, and to get to know each other's name too. And it works best if you have staff who can be at a table or kind of go between tables, just to make sure that they are actually talking and getting to know each other's names. I'll go by and say, do you know this person? No, I've kind of seen them. Like, well, introduce yourselves, tell each other your names. Oh, when you're outside, you can be like, hey, Benita, because now you know Benita's name. So just really that familiarity, that, it kind of increases comfort level, that overall positive school climate that we talk about. And you're more likely to not do things that are unkind if you know this person and you put their name to that face. So that's Mix It Up. It's as simple as that. It could be more elaborate. We've had music, we've had balloons, it could be however you want to make it, but it's really just about getting to know other people that you might not usually eat lunch with. So on this website too, where the bullying prevention resources, under educators, there's a lot of websites and with links to activities that you can do to really, again, engage students and create that positive school climate. We have assemblies that I can come and help a school coordinate and put on, but it would have to be using school staff or volunteers. And those are primarily for middle school. That's just the resources that we have right now are for middle school students. Possibly 9th grade with some of our cyberbullying stuff, but what we do is show video clips and engage students in discussion about what they can do if they were in that situation, how they could help a situation of bullying if they see it happening, and they talk in small groups, and then they can share out with a large group as well. And there's some videos on our website that show an assembly here at Sylvan, actually. It was about 2 or 3 years ago that we did it here. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go into this because bullying prevention is not always about bullying and those bullying behaviors. It's about positive school climate. It's about kindness and respect and empathy for others. So all of that is part of an effective school-wide program, whether that's addressing specifically bullying or positive school climate. So any kind of school-wide program is going to have those overall umbrellas that address policies and procedures school-wide, and then it's going to have those things that address issues when they're individual incidents of bullying and things like that happen. We're going to make sure that our students who are being bullied are getting help and resources, and those who are doing the bullying as well. Also, just those ongoing discussions in the classroom, ideally, for effective bullying prevention or school climate programs, there are weekly discussions or class meetings on topics such as bullying, such as positive character traits, cultural diversity, all of those things that contribute to people feeling good about coming to school and being here and belonging, creating, again, that positive school climate. So those are kind of the ideals. In high school, it gets a little tricky because of all the classes and movement, and so we say in high schools a minimum of once a month is great. If you can do every third Friday, fourth period, no matter where you're at, whatever class you're in, whether that's math, social studies, whatever, everybody's going to have a discussion on this topic, and that would be your class meeting. So things like that, just putting some simple kind of procedures in place, all contribute to that positive school climate. And then of course involving parents at all levels of that, as much as they can volunteer, contribute to whatever those policies are, being on some kind of a committee, and then bringing in community as well. So all those things are really important to creating that feeling of positive school climate and culture. I'm gonna go through. So this is, we talked about how staff can respond, and this is kind of the general procedure that we teach our staff when they see bullying happening. It's on-the-spot intervention. So stopping the bullying right when they see it happening, supporting the student who was bullied, and that could look different for different students and age ranges. A younger student, you might go over and kind of put your arm around them, versus an older student, if you did that, they would just be embarrassed and horrified, so you wouldn't do that. But just, it could be something as simple as eye contact. But just letting them know that you know what's happening and that something's going to be done about it. You want to follow up with the student who was doing the bullying or suspected bullying. It doesn't have to be right then and there, but letting them know someone is going to be following up with you. And then whether that's the person who saw it or an administrator, but following through with that. And then making sure the student who's being bullied you do a check-in with them to make sure things are okay, bullying's not continuing to happen, or getting them any other support they might need. We talked about class meetings. Okay, so now we're going to get to, I think a lot of you might have picked up these tip sheets. Some of this might be similar to what's on these tip sheets, and some might be a little bit different. But we're going to talk about what to do if your child is being bullied. So the first thing that's always important as a parent, and you guys all know this and you're here, so that shows me right off the bat that you guys care about your kids and want to do what is right for them. So the first thing is listening and taking it seriously. So if your child comes to you with concerns about bullying that's happening to them or to someone else, just taking it seriously, listening and being there. And then also not putting any blame on someone, on your child. Kind of, sometimes we might phrase things accidentally and not intending to, but in a way that might make it feel like they did something to elicit the bullying to happen, and we know that nobody deserves to be bullied. And then we've talked about, too, working with your student's school to resolve the situation. So it's important to work with them. Everybody wants positive things for your kids and your students and their students. So working with your school, but then knowing if, again, like we talked about earlier, if you feel like you're just not getting what you think you need, then maybe talking it over with Benita or Kate to see if there are some other steps that need to happen. When it comes to students who are bullying, especially at the younger ages too, we don't want to jump to just suspension or that harsh discipline. We want to teach them about why the behavior is not okay and what they can do differently. And then give them opportunities to show that they understand. They can, if they're a really young child, read a storybook and maybe summarize it for you. Or if they're a little bit older, they can do a short research project to, on something in history that relates to bullying or that abuse of power. Or they can develop a short 5-minute presentation that they need to present to their class on bullying and how it affects others. So things like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be suspension or those other harsh behaviors that we jump to or discipline that we jump to right away. Of course, it depends on what the situation was. If somebody physically hurt somebody, well then, yeah, that's going to have some kind of a suspension, but maybe it'll be 1 day and a project that goes along with it versus 5 days or. So what to do if your child witnesses bullying, your son or daughter comes home and they are telling you about bullying that's happening, they're not comfortable with it, they don't know what to do about it, just encouraging them to report bullying and letting them know it's not the same as tattling or snitching, but there are different ways they can do it. They don't have to do it in a way where everybody's going to know, because yeah, they might get labeled a tattletale or a snitch, and we want to keep them safe as well. So they can, hang back after class, they can leave a note on the desk of a teacher or administrator. So just letting them know that it is important if they really feel like bullying is happening and something needs to be done, or you can support them and go to the school with them, again, maybe after school hours or something like that. Working on, in any of these situations, if your child's being bullied, doing the bullying, or sees bullying happening, they don't know what to do, role playing is huge. It's a really huge skill that you can use with your child to be able to know what they might do in these situations. And it kind of feels funny at first when you're kind of acting out these situations. Kids might think it's stupid or dumb, or they're embarrassed to do it. But if you help them think of words that they themselves would say in these situations, they're more likely to recall that and use it when it happens. So we might say, tell them, stop, that hurts my feelings. But if those aren't words they're really naturally going to use, then it's useless. So go through them with the situation. Maybe they can let you know of something they've seen happen or has happened to them, and then work with them to develop what words they might say in that situation, words that are kind of natural to them. And then just encouraging your kids to include people who might be left out. That's a huge step in helping with bullying, because if there's the student who's sitting by themselves all the time, they are going to be an easier target than if they're sitting with others in a group at lunch. Those kinds of things. And always, being aware of other people's feelings. Is it really going to hurt you to invite that one other person to your birthday party? It might make a huge difference in their life, and you might get to make a new friend and have more people at your party. So things like that, just really thinking about how other people feel, that empathy. One website that I wanted to let you know about is stopbullying.gov. In addition to our awesome prevention website, this is another great resource, stopbullying.gov, and it has a ton of information for parents as well, laws on there, other tips for what parents can do, public service announcements you can use with your students, all different age ranges. So I'm going to end with video. Some of you may have seen this, and these are our actual San Juan students at Edison. That Lisette works at Edison, and we did this video about a year or two ago. Yeah, it's like 2 years ago. And this just kind of brings it back to why we even care about this issue of bullying.
I'm the person you bullied at school.
I'm the person that didn't want to be cool.
I'm the person you alienated.
I'm the person you ridiculed and hated.
I'm the person who sat on their own.
I am the person who walked home alone.
I am the person you scared every day. I am the person who had nothing to say.
I am the person who hurt in his eyes.
I'm the person you never saw cry.
I am the person living alone with her fears.
I am the person who got destroyed by his peers.
I am the person who drowned in your scorn.
I am the person who wished she hadn't been born.
I'm the person you destroyed for fun. I am the person, but not the only one.
I am the person whose name you don't know.
I am the person who just can't let go.
I am the person who had feelings too.
And I was a person just like you.
So again, this kind of ties into why we care about this issue of bullying, because it definitely has long-term effects that affect us if we were bullied, if we did the bullying, or if we were bystanders and witnessed bullying. So definitely an important issue, and again, all goes back to teaching that empathy and kindness and positive school climate. So if you'll take just a second to, this isn't really an evaluation, it's more of a survey or questionnaire just to let us know as a district what you feel your school does well with bullying prevention and intervention, some things that you think can be improved on, and what you would like to see brought into your schools or in the district, what resources you would like. And that helps inform us as a program to be able to provide that to you all and your children.